Okay, good afternoon. My name is Mia Hayes Hawkins, and I am interviewing Mr. Dennis Chestnut on October 11th, 2013 in Washington, D.C. at the Marshall Heights. Is it Community Center?
Community Development.
Community Development. This interview is part of the D.C. Gardeners Oral History Project sponsored by the Neighborhood Farm Initiative and the D.C. Humanities Council. Thank you, Mr. Chestnut, for talking with us today. And can you first start by sharing your name and your address?
Okay, well, my name is Dennis Chestnut. I'm the Executive Director of Groundwork in Acosta River, D.C. My address is 3939 Benning Road, Northeast, Washington, D.C., and that is in Ward 7.
Okay, good. Thank you. Well, we're actually just going to start a little bit about some basics. So can we start by can we start by you letting us know where you grew up? Are you a native Washingtonian? And did you bring all your knowledge, from here, or were you from somewhere else?
Well, yes, I am a native Washingtonian.
Beautiful.
Born right here in Washington, D.C. I was actually born in Georgetown at Georgetown University Hospital.
Wow.
Way back in 1949. And that might not be as way back to some people, but it was back in 1949.
Okay.
And I'm a lifetime resident of Ward 7.
Beautiful.
And I'm presently living in the community where I grew up.
Nice.
Yep. So I do have history here, and I've lived other places. I went to college in North Carolina,
Oh, wow.
and I, of course, have traveled a number of places, but keep finding my way back here.
Aw. So you went to North Carolina?
I went to Fayetteville State College. It's
Okay.
university now, but
Mhm.
Fayetteville State College.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Did you major in anything dealing with agriculture, or did you venture out?
I did not. I actually was majoring in business administration,
Mhm.
and I've gone full circle because I got completely away from that, and now I'm actually benefiting from some of that because I'm being an executive director of a nonprofit, but a nonprofit is still a business.
Mhm.
So I'm operating a business and managing and leading a team, so my business management has come full circle. I'm now doing what I started out.
Oh, good deal. Okay, so you said you grew up in D.C., in Georgetown.
Well, I didn't grow up in Georgetown.
Okay.
No, I grew up right here
Ward 7.
in Ward 7, right
Okay.
here in far northeast Ward 7. But I was born at Georgetown University Hospital because of the way that the city was structured at that time, back in the late 40s. There were hospitals
Mhm.
in Washington, D.C. that were segregated.
Okay.
So the one closest to
Wow.
this community, the African American and minority populations, if you want to use that term, could not attend.
Wow.
So it would surprise a lot of people to know that and it's not a hospital any longer, but what became the D.C. General Hospital
Mhm.
was the Gallinger Hospital,
Wow.
and was not for the people who resided in the
Mhm.
far northeast and east of the river community. So
Interesting.
Georgetown University Hospital, which was a Catholic hospital, was open and eligible for us
Wow.
to, yeah. So
Oh, wow.
my parents, migrated completely across
Mhm.
town to also what was, predominantly African American community anyway. That's what
Mhm.
Georgetown was way
Wow.
back, yeah. And
I had no idea.
oh yeah, yeah. The history of
Wow.
Georgetown University is very interesting.
Mhm.
You know.
I can imagine.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely, yeah.
Good
So,
deal.
yeah.
Okay, so you grew up in Ward 7.
Grew up right here in far northeast Ward 7.
Okay. So, and I've heard many stories just from other interviews and other people that kind of tell me their history. But what do you remember as far as, I guess, that neighborhood back there?
Well, that neighborhood was considered to be the rural part of Washington, D.C.
Okay.
The east of the river communities, not only being separated from a lot of the other parts of Washington, D.C. by way of the river separated Ward 7 and Ward 8
Okay.
from the rest of Washington, D.C. But the eastern, or what is known as east of the river areas, at one time was even referred to as Washington County. So this was not just like a suburban part of the city, but it was a rural part of the city.
Okay.
When I was a young person here, there were gardens all over the area.
Wow.
There were fruit trees that just grew wild in most of the wooded areas. Every basic yard in our community had at least one, sometimes two and three different fruit trees. And there was a cornfield that was right across the street from my house. It was a large cornfield right here in northeast Washington, D.C.
Very interesting.
Yeah, and it was rural. There were some parts of the neighborhood where there were still outhouses. And there were folks that did a lot of farming right in this area. They sold their produce off of produce carts.
Wow.
And a lot of the houses were heated by coal and wood burning. And I remember I was a young teenager when we got our first refrigerator. And I just turned 13 years old.
Wow.
And because prior to that we had a ice box.
Okay.
Yeah. They used to deliver a block of ice that would be in a compartment, and that's what kept things cold.
Wow.
Yeah, I wish I could find one of those now. That was quite a
Wow.
piece of equipment. Yeah.
So basically, I'm guessing did it just allow for families to use what they had at that moment, not like the refrigerator, we can keep things and store
Yeah.
things.
Well,
in it for that.
refrigerators allow us to have a lot of leftovers, I call it. That ice box primarily kept butter, eggs, milk, which milk was delivered fresh,
Wow.
like at least a couple of times a week from the dairy. Dairy would
Wow.
deliver the milk, would deliver the butter, would deliver eggs. So those things were delivered. So really what we primarily did was eat very fresh. What was prepared for a meal you consumed, and that was so we pretty much ate fresh.
Wow.
Which was good. I mean, that means that we were eating pretty much mostly healthy.
Good.
And then of course in the summertime I always remember two things that would be stored in there would be some cold water and usually a big pitcher of lemonade or something
Aw.
like that. Yeah. So,
Wow.
Yeah. But that's how it operated.
Good. I'm sure it was,
Yeah.
very innovative. We think that we're being innovative right now with the technology and stuff, but
Yeah.
it's very simple.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. We, that was one of the things I'm glad that I'm able to reflect on. And my mother did a lot of canning,
Okay.
and that was part of preparing for the times that we didn't have fresh produce growing. I always remember, parts of our yard. I mean, my parents were not big on lawns.
Mhm.
And one of the reasons was they used a lot of that space for gardening.
Mhm.
So we always had a garden. I mean,
Good.
I thought it was odd if I saw, I went to high school in Northwest Washington, up on the far upper end of Northwest, near Tacoma, near the
Okay.
Tacoma area. And, uh, a lot of folks up on that end had yards with lawns.
Mhm.
And it really looked a little odd to me when I got up there in 1964, and one of my folks were not using that space for gardening,
Mhm.
because that's what we always had. Everybody had a garden over in our neighborhood. Yeah,
Wow.
grew something. Yeah, so
Good.
I grew up, right down at the corner of my mom's apron, sitting in the
Mhm.
garden. From a little kid on up. I mean, I can remember that. That was,
Beautiful.
yeah. So that was my first exposure
Good.
to gardening. And my parents were both from the South,
Okay.
from South Carolina. So
Okay.
it was a part of their lifestyle.
Mhm.
And it even is why my father was interested in, when he came to Washington, D.C. in the early 40s. He settled in, he liked this part of town.
Good.
I guess it reminded him a lot of home. Yeah. So.
Mhm. Wow, so good. I'm glad you said that. You jumped right into it. So you
Mhm.
grew up with. I had no idea that there were that. I guess northeast DC. It was. It. I couldn't imagine it being rural,
Mhm.
and cornfields. But I'm sure a lot has changed between then
Oh,
and
yeah,
now.
yeah. And we had the benefit of both a mix of commercial, because
Mhm.
the Minnesota Avenue corridor was a very commercially, I mean, there's a lot of business operating there.
Mhm.
One of the things about the east of the river area, and it goes back probably in the history a little bit, Benning Road was one of the only river crossings in the city at one time.
Oh wow.
The other was, now this, this was not recent history, but was the 11th Street Bridge. So at one time, the 11th Street Bridge and Benning Road were the only two river crossings,
Wow.
across the Anacostia River. So
Interesting.
since that time, of course, South Capitol Street was added,
Mhm.
and the East Capitol Street, or what is called Whitney Young,
Mhm.
Pennsylvania Avenue, all of that was added in over
Wow.
time later. But yeah, so we pretty much operated over here on this side of town. So we had everything that we, pretty much felt we needed. Didn't have a big need to go downtown unless you just specifically wanted to,
Mhm.
go down for various things. But there was a movie theater on
Wow.
Minnesota Avenue. As a matter of fact, there were two theaters over here on this side. Strand Theater, that was down a little further down, the Dean Avenue area, and the theater on Minnesota. There were 5 grocery stores within walking distance of one another
Wow.
at that time. Men's and women's clothing stores, High's Dairy Store, a couple of drugstores, pharmacies, the shoe repair,
Aw.
I'm just remembering all these different businesses, all the supply stores. And then there were all these small businesses, the barber shops, beauty shops, the delicatessen, the founder and the owner who developed Murray Steaks operated his first store, and it wasn't a Murray Steaks; it was just a
Butcher
storefront
shop.
grocer.
Oh wow.
They were operating out here. The Jewish grocers
Oh wow.
were operating out here, and he opened his first one. He lived upstairs on the second floor over top of it, he and his family. And now Murray Steaks is
It's
big business.
interesting.
Yeah, but it started right out here in Farmington Beach, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah,
That is interesting.
yeah.
Good
yeah.
deal.
Mhm.
I can't, I'm thinking as you're talking and explaining the demographics of the area, my mind is, just kind of pinpointing different, and I can't even imagine
Sure.
what it, I can, but I'm imagining what it looked like back then.
Yeah.
And it looks as if it was really simple, but economically, business was good. Um, a lot of fresh produce, a lot of small businesses, very community oriented.
Very community oriented. The churches were a big part of
Mhm.
the community.
Mhm.
They were like really kind of like the center.
Wow.
A lot of activity took place at and around the churches. They
Mhm.
were a big deal. I mean, they were socially, culturally, a lot was happening with the churches. It was even, as a matter of fact, we didn't have a recreation center over here until I was, like I said, a lot started happening when around the time I became a teenager.
Mhm.
First recreation center was built with a brand new junior high school called Carter G. Woodson Junior High.
Oh, wow.
And the recreation center was attached to the school. And
Wow.
so I remember it was a big deal because it finally had a ball field and
Mhm.
a gymnasium, and it was a real big deal. But prior to that, I mean, our playground was the woods,
Mhm.
and the Anacostia River, and the stream, and
Little creeks.
and we just had a good old time.
Sure.
Yeah.
Aw.
Very green over here, as you can see.
Mhm.
A lot of green space.
Mhm.
And so,
Good. So let me ask you, what do you remember? I know you guys had a garden while you were growing up. What do you remember growing then?
well, yeah, tomatoes was one of those things that grew, they grew a lot of greens.
Mm-hmm. Oh, good.
I really came to like greens a lot, and that was a main staple.
Mhm.
They did grow some melons,
Okay.
and peppers. My mom used to grow her own herbs. She was a cook. That's what she did for a living.
Okay.
And so she would grow her own herbs. I remember one of the things I developed a taste for early on was, she used to put rosemary,
Mhm.
in eggs.
Mhm.
And not only would it catch your nose early in the morning, but it
Mhm.
tasted good. So,
Wow.
and she grew her own herbs,
Nice.
and I mean, pretty much everything. Cucumbers, squash, was some of those things that I remember.
Okay.
And then this cornfield across the street from my home, it wasn't ours. It was my neighbor had. The land. I don't know who. We now know that the land belonged to the federal government now,
Okay.
but at that time it was probably at least about a little over half acre of land, and he gardened on it. He grew corn most of the time. He had a whole field of corn.
Wow.
And I remember it was this white corn that we used to go over and we used to break stalks off and eat it right off off the corn stalk.
Wow.
Yeah.
Aw.
Yeah, it was good.
Good
Yeah,
deal.
yeah. So along with the abundant fruit trees
Mm.
in the area, I mean, pear, apple, more than one kind of apple,
Wow.
cherry, grapes, figs, peaches. All of this was just growing. I mean, it even grew up in the area that we used to call the woods, and I've since found out that, well, now we know that it was a former Civil War fort,
Hmm.
and part of the Civil War defenses of Washington. And when it was a Civil War fort. I guess they probably farmed parts of it as well, and as a result, there was yeah.
That is, and I wouldn't have had a clue.
Oh yeah, persimmon. I mean, we knew about these things. I was sharing things with folks, and they said persimmon. I've never had that. I said, you haven't had a persimmon? I said, man, we used to just pick them.
Wow.
They would get ripe and drop, and we would get them, right off.
And that's probably the best fresh fruit.
Yeah,
food.
make your lips numb when you eat it, but it was good, sweet.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, good deal.
Yeah.
Okay. So, well, let me ask. Well, you said your mom was the cook. Did you do a lot of cooking, I guess, as you grew older, and use what was available from the garden and maybe around the area?
Well, I'm the youngest of five. I had five brothers. I had 5 brothers, 3 sisters.
Wow.
And I'm the youngest. I was the baby child.
Okay.
And but my mom did impress on us to she was famous about you like to eat, you better learn how to cook. So but I had the benefit of especially my sisters being around, and I didn't have to really engage in the cooking unless I just wanted to. But I did by hanging around and being in the way. I would be I would do the various different things. They would give me a task, to do.
Okay.
But I do enjoy trying it out every now and then with different things. But we had a cooking family, and 3 of my older brothers who went to the military actually were cooks in the military.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they became very proficient at it.
Interesting.
Yeah, did it in the military.
Wow, so it went from growing to cooking to going to the military to using that same information, those abilities, and just spreading them out. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Wow. So I guess with all the food that was growing right in the yard, did you guys ever go to the store?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I mean, there were one of the places, and I, now, kind of figuring. Relating. We now have reusable. People are doing a lot of reusable bags. A low point of information. Plastic bags didn't exist before 1970.
Wow.
Okay. So my mom, and I keep referring to her, she was a very big influence on a lot of things that, I guess I'm engaged in now. But she made her own shopping bags out of what some people call crocus sacks. They call it one name, but it was the burlap bags. Yeah, she would sew handles on, take them, put them to reuse. She was one of the original recyclers. She would take something and turn it into because they were not wealthy people. My father was a boiler engineer in the Montgomery County school system, and my mom was a cook there. And they earned a decent living, but they weren't real wealthy people. So and having a large family, they stretched the dollar. So and then those paper bags at the grocery store wouldn't work very well for hauling those groceries home in those paper bags. So she would put the paper bag inside of those bags that she would make.
Wow.
And that's how, and she sewed these handles. The handles were made out of different things, but part of it was burlap, but it had some kind of something that you would hold on to. And that's because I remember having to tug them home a lot of times after going to the grocery store with her.
That is interesting.
But one of the places they did a lot of shopping aside from the grocery store, what they shopped at the grocery store for certain things they need to buy from the grocery store. But the market
Mhm.
down in the 6th Street area off of Florida Avenue, the
Okay.
Florida Avenue Market, that's been there, yeah. So,
Wow.
yeah, you could go there, you know, that was the big market. Buy meats, and all kinds of other farmers were, yeah, it was, they had big stands, you know, in that Florida
Oh,
Avenue
wow.
Market, not down near the Gallaudet
Uh-huh.
College, yeah, it was big market area. So that was one of the, places
Hmm.
we would frequent. But also, one of the things I remember, that would happen, we would, take trips out to, um, like the areas out in, Prince George's County,
Mhm.
down in southern Maryland, Brandywine areas,
Wow.
and we would pick, the farmers grew, and you could go and you could pick, you know, baskets of all kind of things, from string beans, tomatoes, all kind of veggies,
Wow.
you know, and then they'd come home and can. I mean, it would look like canning parties. And they would can, and then in the wintertime,
Mhm.
you go, you know, they kept my parents kept a pantry, I guess you'd call it, down in the basement, and there was
Wow.
always, you know, no freezer.
Mhm.
We didn't have a freezer. You know, I remember we got the first refrigerator and it had that little freezing compartment on it.
Mhm.
That was a real luxury. But no, they canned. You know, and we would have everything from fresh. I mean, we'd have all kinds of tomatoes, you know, squash, all kinds of beans. She would make soups and canned. You know, all man. Yeah, so yeah, it was. That's how it worked.
Wow.
I even saw my father. I remember at Christmas he would break out a watermelon at Christmas time
Mhm.
and cut it open fresh. He had a way of storing a watermelon in the basement, in a cool part of the basement, and he would put it in straw, hay, and keep the stem out, and it would stay fresh until Christmas dinner. And not only would we have, you know, all of the other good fixings,
Uh-huh.
but they'd go down and break out a nice watermelon, and it was just as crisp, and you know, hey,
Wow.
yeah. So, you know, I mean, I was like, whoa, you know, yeah,
Wow.
yeah, amazing, yeah,
Watermelon at Christmas.
yeah.
I mean, was it wasn't on the vine or the stalk or
No,
anything?
they
He
had
just,
picked it during the season, and that's how they would store it. And he said the primary thing was to keep that stem
Uh-huh.
on it, and he packed it down in straw
That is amazing.
in the basement, in the cool part of the basement. It wasn't mushy or anything. It was like a fresh watermelon. When they cut that thing, it's like you had just
Like
got
picked it out of the
yeah.
I am amazed.
Oh yeah. And these were things we were just taking for granted as being regular. I mean, it wasn't like, you know. That's why a lot of things nowadays, you know, it's really amazing to people a lot of the things that are being done. But you know, this is
Mhm. Not
yeah,
new
it's
stuff.
just gone around full
Uh-huh.
circle. You
Wow.
know.
That is amazing.
Yeah. And this was a very self-sufficient part of the city, because of just the
Mhm.
way things were at the time during the 50s and 60s, and until, you know, certain equal accommodation things
Mhm.
kind of changed, you know. Yeah, so you had to rely on
But
yourself and each
Mhm.
other, and
Mhm.
it really built community a lot too.
Wow.
Yeah, it was an ice house that sold the ice over on Sheriff Road over in the Deanwood neighborhood,
Mhm.
and there was a guy who used to come by, and he had a a horse-drawn cart that had vegetables and coal. There was coal deliveries.
Mm-hmm.
But like I said, we got milk and eggs like fresh a couple of times a week.
I wish.
Yeah. Yeah, it was the Embassy Dairy was right here in
Wow.
the city. We used to deliver it. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
I can't imagine. I'm hoping we can get back to those
Oh, yeah,
days like
yeah,
that, you
yeah.
know, but the technology is good.
Yeah, technology's good. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. But it's it has its place and purpose, and
Definitely.
it's like anything. We should not become overly dependent on anything.
Mhm.
I mean, like one thing that we need to know how to do is follow the middle course. And
Mhm.
stay away from the edges, because the edges, is that's the problem.
Mhm.
The extreme. So, technology is wonderful. But don't get too
Yeah.
close to the edge. You
Mhm.
might fall off.
Good. Oh, so you say you remember the 6th Street,
Florida Avenue
Florida
Market.
Ave.
Mhm.
Did you remember going, or you told me about Southern Maryland, and then you would go to Brandywine. I guess anything around in the same area or in the D.C. area, you remember farmers markets that were really popular? I know
Well-
I remember someone mentioned like Heckinger's, everybody
Oh,
remembers
yeah.
Eastern Market
Yeah,
and things
yeah.
like that back
Well,
then.
Eastern Market was not. It was. It wasn't as like it is now. But it was a market area. That was one market. There was other markets that were up in the northwest area as well.
Mhm.
If they had no, if you were in that area for a reason, like visiting someone or something like that. Our parents, they had friends in different parts of town. But otherwise, you really had no need to just move around to different markets, and because you had your own.
Mhm.
And the
Wow.
Florida Avenue Market was the big market.
Mhm.
Heckinger, as a matter of fact, there were. They had a couple of stores here in the city. One was up on Georgia Avenue,
Okay.
and the other was over here in Northeast.
Mhm.
But there were other lumber yards as well. There was one right on Minnesota Avenue called Mirando. It was a lumber yard that was right here in this area, right where the metro station is now.
Wow.
And F.L. Watkins was another lumber yard that was right on the edge of far northeast over here. Right in the city.
Wow.
And so, and then we had another place here that was, was a source of a lot of interesting material, and that was the city's landfill was located right over here in this community.
Hmm.
What is now Kenilworth Park
Mhm.
was a landfill.
Wow.
Yeah. And so you could get some interesting things out of the landfill. You had, it really was a place that had a lot of
Wow.
different, yeah.
Oh, wow.
The dump. We used to just call it the dump. It was the city dump. Right?
Interesting.
Yeah, you could find furniture there that could be repaired, or you could
Sure.
find almost practically anything. I remember my father made these doors for the pantry for my mom, and I still have it too. It's still there in the house, because I'm in the house I grew up in.
Mhm.
This door was made out of 2 window sashes. So
Wow.
the top and bottom window, and he made it into a door. So it's glass all on the front. Open it up, got hinges hinged,
Aw.
and shelves inside. And it's on he framed it up, built this, and I understand that that's where they got these items from.
Wow.
Somebody's trash is
Yeah.
another person's treasure.
Mhm.
So, yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. Self-sufficient people,
It's
and
to be-
recyclers without it being called that, conserve,
Mhm.
reuse, reduce, recycle was going
Exactly.
on
Right.
a long time ago,
And using and giving back.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
all
yeah.
of it.
Instead of spending that money, you could use it on something else,
And well, I know you guys had the garden and so many resources around. Did you guys, or did your mother or family save seeds, or where did you get your seeds?
Yeah, well, there was those places like Hecklinger, like F.L. Watkins. You could always get seeds there. There was another place down in southern Maryland that you could get seeds from called Southern States.
Okay.
Yeah, and certain seeds, you definitely could get from down there. Some of the farmers actually supplied seeds. They were, they could guarantee good crops that way. So, you relied on what they provided.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is good.
Yeah. But we used to always enjoy making our own pumpkin seeds.
How did you make those?
Oh, we would roast them, and we used to do that.
Wow, I mean, like, did you actually
yeah,
roasted them in the oven, or you just?
Yeah, right, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, absolutely. Right in the in the oven, right in the stove.
That is so good.
Yeah.
I wish.
Yeah, you would take the lamb out and let them dry in the sun a lot first. Then that would speed it up. Yeah, but yeah, that's what we do.
What did you add your own salt?
Oh yeah, you season them up, all kind of ways, Yeah, we were very creative with how we, like would do some of those things.
Wow.
Yeah, popcorn was another.
I remember my
popcorn.
stories.
I remember taking my sisters used to take it's called a skillet. And that dried corn, put in there, put the top on it, man, it would pop up just as nice. A little, little oil in the bottom.
Wow. Very interesting.
Yeah. Because it wasn't. It was a lot of those things. It wasn't instant popcorn. That was that came about with my kids. They go there. It was always that. It was not always popcorn in a bag. I said, no, I remember when Jiffy Pop came out. That was the, it had the little handle on it. Thing would swell up, But, no, we made our own.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Got it. So actually, let me ask, because you have children, and I'm sure, did you get a chance to teach them, or were they in the garden when they were younger, or did they have any knowledge, even a touch of what you even had, or you and your brothers and sisters?
One of the things, I was fortunate to marry my wife was not really a Southerner, but we were compatible, and it wasn't any. When we started raising a family, our lifestyle was easy for for her to adapt to. We were, and she was a natural type of person anyway.
Good.
And so she didn't believe in. As a matter of fact, she fortunately got exposed to my mom when when we first met and all, and so she learned how to can, and she didn't trust prepared baby foods, and she made all of her own baby food. She breastfed all of my children. She made her own baby foods because she learned how to make applesauce before she had our first child, and so she just took it a step further and made all of it. She made all the baby food. So my children didn't eat any processed baby food. They were breastfed. They didn't eat any processed baby food, and they did get the childhood immunizations, but my sons, either one of them, had chicken pox until they were like 18 years old.
Wow.
Yeah. So most of those childhood diseases, they didn't impact them.
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Very good.
Yeah, live a natural way of life.
Mhm.
Yeah, but no, we were products of the 60s, and doing it naturally was one of those things we kind of gravitated to. It really fit well.
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
Herbal teas.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Very good. Okay, so I'm gonna move into, I guess, your own personal gardening experiences. And I'm sure you picked up some things from your mother and just from growing up. But as you got older, and I'm assuming that you started to grow things because you are well involved in it now. What did you learn? What were your starting points? When did you, on your own, grow your own garden, or just wanted to make you guys self-sufficient, for your own family?
Yeah. Well, it wasn't immediate, because you become an adult, and you start working, and it takes up your work life and all of that, and the conveniences of being able to shop and so forth. Now, one of the things that we had, the convenience of being able to buy, what people call now organic, but I mean we would do that. I mean, we would definitely purchase a lot of fresh, trying to make sure that we ate healthy, but we always would maintain a little small growing area somewhere to grow certain things. And my wife loved to grow her own herbs. That was something she picked up from my mother. So we did install like a window garden box, and we would grow those. But as we move forward, I actually was glad that I picked up on a lot of the things that I learned in it's like riding a bicycle. Once you learn how to do it. So, but I did do a lot of studying, and really tried to put into practice some of the things that I learned. So, didn't like we composted when I was a kid, but that was because the way that trash was picked up, you had to separate out the trash back in those days.
Okay, you mean like not more than plastic and glass?
Well, plastic, remember, I said didn't come about until there. Yeah, so you didn't have a lot of that anyway. But cans, because the sanitation department, what they basically did with most of that stuff was burn it. So cans were separated out, from the other regular trash, and then there was what was called a garbage man.
Okay.
He was a guy that picked up. There was a can that you put, the raw stuff in.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
So my parents, basically put the compostable items, which we call them compost items now. They didn't call it compost, but they put those items in a container, and that went right back into the ground to help fertilize the garden that they had.
Wow.
So I, actually did the same thing once we started doing a garden. Just compost everything from. And another thing my mother used to do was to take all of the eggshells, put them in a jar, fill them up with water, and that was, she used that to water a lot of her plants too.
Wow.
Yeah.
I see, these are good tips.
Yeah. But and so I've actually I would say since my family has really grown up, I've really gotten more into doing the gardening myself now, more so, and we do it now because we like doing it.
Good. And I'm right. And then you can eat from it and have your
Yeah,
own.
yeah.
Good. What do you grow now?
Oh, well, there's the tomatoes, of course the herbs.
Mhm.
We definitely still, do that. And I basically take advantage of, and I'll say take advantage of, the fact that we have access to these community gardens that our organization works with.
Mhm.
So anytime I'm in Mayfair,
Mhm.
I'm picking vegetables. They have a fig tree there that I
Oh,
get
wow.
figs from. And some of the other produce. There's still greens growing there
Mhm.
right now. So we'll wait till the frost hits, and they'll really be ready to pick. So those kind of things. And I move around to all of those garden sites.
Mhm.
And I try to support some of the farmers markets, but my wife likes to buy fresh from this other place. I won't call the name of the location, but she does. And then we do Mom's Market. It's one of
Okay.
our favorite places to shop.
Okay.
Certain things we get from there. So.
Well, wow.
Yeah.
Interesting. So you guys don't have to frequent the store.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's and fortunately our family size is reduced now since everybody's grown.
Aw.
But we have we have grandchildren. And
Beautiful.
everybody comes through, so everybody visits the house.
Mhm.
And the refrigerator becomes this place where all of the stuff is stored
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Mhm.
But it's good. That's modern convenience.
Mhm.
You know.
Wow.
Yeah.
Do you or have you, or let me ask, what specifically have you taken, or do you remember some little thing that maybe your mother did, your family did, as far as food in the garden that you still do or use today?
Let's see. Well, actually storing it, we'll freeze
Mhm.
vegetables. Like fresh. Get them fresh.
Mhm.
Now it depends on which one it is, but my wife will even corn. Not even
Not even
shuck it.
shuck it.
Yeah, just put it right in Ziplocs
Oh, wow.
and put that right in the freezer.
Wow.
The greens, sometimes she'll do what she calls blanch them. She'll
Mhm.
drop them, just immediately take them out, stick them in Ziplocs and freeze those, and they're just like fresh when you take them out. One of the things we are intending to get back into a little bit more. We haven't done it in a while, but she still has all of her canning equipment.
Okay.
So and we do have a significant number of the mason jars around that we've had for a long time. So we do intend to get back into some of the canning.
Good.
Yeah.
Aw,
And I think it's timely because this experience that we have right now
Mhm.
with the government, going through the changes they're going through, shutting down, but it should be an eye opener to us that we can't get too overly dependent on some of the things that we take for granted, even with the stores.
Mhm.
So I take a little tip from even the Mormons,
Mhm.
who keep a supply of freeze-dried food and water and those kind of things. But see, we've experienced some sheltering in place situations, all of us,
Mhm.
over the recent few years,
Mhm.
that is probably to everybody's benefit to have certain things stored in at least a few days or a week or what have you, so that you can survive. Yeah.
Wow. Interesting. Right. Okay, so in all of your garden history, have you made any mistakes?
Oh, absolutely.
Or should I say?
I don't, I wouldn't call them necessarily mistakes. An old farmer, he was actually my father-in-law. He said that, it's all just a big experiment anyway. So,
Mm-hmm.
there's no guarantee in it. So you follow principles.
Mm-hmm.
There are principles to follow. So you follow those principles. But we have all this rain now.
Mm-hmm.
But a few weeks ago we were in a drought.
Yeah.
It hadn't rained for months,
Mhm.
couple of months. I mean, it was dry. Washington D.C. experiences a drought season every year anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So you work with it. You
Mhm.
become a part of it. It's an ecosystem,
Definitely.
and you work within the system. So,
Mhm.
I wouldn't call it mistakes. I call it trial and error.
Okay.
And of course you learn from those things.
Mhm.
That's what you do.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, I guess, let me ask, what specific trial and errors do you remember? Let's say maybe you were roasting or, your pumpkin seeds and you left them out in the sun too long, or you put your corn seeds in the ground too far down, or, you thought you did something with the canning that didn't kind of pan out. Is there anything you have been maybe memorable that you can remember? Just
Well,
about?
not necessarily. I mean, there are some things that, for one reason or another, may not have turned out like you exactly expected it to, but it may not have been necessarily anything that you did right or wrong. I mean, you did wrong per se. One of the things I did learn was the importance of how to amend the soil.
Okay.
So you have to bring in some and the organic amendments nowadays. They got these, now you have these organic amendments you can bring in. But these were some of the things that I can remember and I can reflect back on that were done, and that's like the composting.
Mm-hmm.
And you'd be surprised at some of the things they used to put in that compost. I mean, I know, like things like meat products, of course, can't be composted, but they did put in fish. So they would take the fish remain,
Mm-hmm.
and it would go in
Mhm.
with the compost.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, and it makes sense. It does make sense. And I'm just thinking back, when maybe we used to go fishing with my grandmother, and they would scale and
Yeah.
gut and cut open and do everything, and then just taking the remains because they came from the water.
Yeah.
Um,
And so that's, yeah. So that, I
Wow.
remember that would be one of the things that would be done. I mean, so if there's a mistake I would say I've made is being too overly dependent on being able to just go to the lawn department and landscaping department and pick up a bag of, or I can go and that may have been
Okay.
that may be, I could call that a mistake. I need to make sure I keep doing it, but it's so convenient,
Mhm.
so convenience has spoiled us all.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so now let me ask you, and I'm sure you've seen a lot here in DC, as far as changes of land and changes in the trends of food. So from going to more fresh and being sufficient to buying things from the store, and things becoming more convenient, as you say. So, well, let me ask you first. Do you associate any type of food with DC?
Well, DC is interesting because, there's a lot of different cultures here.
Mhm.
So you find certain foods in certain parts of the city. You know, I always remember the Columbia Heights area as being very heavily Latino. You know, even when I was young, and we had a very diverse. This Ward 7 area was a very diverse part of the city. One of the reasons was because of the restrictive covenants that wound up forcing a lot of folks into this area. So as a result, you know, they brought their cultures with them. Family I grew up with was his mom and dad. They were early migrants from Cuba.
Wow.
And so, you know, I remember eating a lot of red beans and rice over at their house, you know. Hey, come in and sit down here, boy, get some of these. Yeah, the Asians were in the neighborhood as well.
Wow.
Along with, so we really got a chance to, you know, kind of mix. We had delis over here in the area that were primarily run by a lot of the Jewish merchants, and so that was, you know, that was one of the things. But if we say one thing, I mean, it's not a vegetable per se, but fish. You know,
Wow.
is probably, you think of Washington D.C., you think of, you know, fish. You know, and I can remember that being, you know, the fish places. You know, soul fish. You know.
Speaking of fish, and I know you know some history about this place, it just made me think of the wharf. And I can't imagine what the wharf was back then. I maybe the past 6 years haven't even seen DC Wharf because I'm not from here. So what, was there anything other than fish that they, you know, sold, or was it more of a market?
It was seafood. It was a seafood. I mean, it was a place where you got all, but they also prepared food down there as well as sold it, you know, fresh. I mean, you could get everything from. I remember, you know, getting a chance to try oysters. We had in the neighborhood, we were able to try clams, but you know, like, you know, like they would come from the Eastern Shore. You know, we had people in the community that went and I remember going fishing as a youngster down on the Eastern Shore with the adults from the community, and we get a chance to experience. You know, I mean, I can't remember the first time I ate an oyster or a clam, but you know, as a kid, you know, the older folks are doing it. You want to try one, boy, and you would try it. You know, you know, but you know, that was how you did it, and so, but fish, yeah, you know, the wharf, that Southwest wharf was one of the places that you could get, you know, folks would go, on a regular basis, buy the fresh, everything. Yeah, because they would come in by way of the boats, you know. You know.
Actually, did they sell any produce back then, or was it
well,
just...
no, most of the produce were at the other, you know,
Okay.
markets for the most part. The wharf was the fish
Okay, fish
location.
station.
Yeah, that was the fish location. Yeah, there was a market area right up in southeast, right up in that. Right on the edge of what people call Capitol Hill now, you know. There were these markets at different places that you know, operated. You know, so you know, some of them were more established, some of them were just kind of neighborhood oriented. You know, but there was a lot of fresh food. That was you know, the thing. You know, you know, there's, you know, like. You didn't, you know, eating out was not that you went to a restaurant per se. You went to someone's house.
Wow.
You know, so, you know, that was eating out. You know, you go with big spread, you know.
Wow.
Yeah. That was eating out, you know. Yeah, so, Yeah, you know, but you know, there were some. Yeah, I mean, yeah, that was how that was, you know.
Mr. Chestnut, you are on point because I was just getting ready to ask you about restaurants. Um, and I know, you guys had fresh things all the time and you had ways of getting fresh things. I'm not sure when restaurants became a part of your life.
Yeah. Well, a lot of the restaurants that we frequented when I was young, if we got a chance to go to one, you know, that was a real treat, you know, because like I said, money was tight.
Yeah.
Wasn't a whole lot of expendable income, and when you could, you know, you could eat at home, you know, like that's when the big meals would take place right there, you know, you would, and like I said, you would visit someone. But there were in the neighborhood where we were, there were a few restaurants. I remember one in particular was very popular in our area was Westbrook's. It wound up becoming one called the Chef's Table.
Okay.
Yeah, right over here in Ward 7. People would travel completely across town to come to the Chef's Table. And Chef's Table was very unique, right up Benning Road.
Okay.
They even had entertainment. So, you know.
Wow.
But one of the early ones I remember was Barnett's Banquet Hall, and it was right down on right at the corner of Division Avenue and Foot Street. And by day it was a banquet hall. It was a place where he was a caterer. He actually was a White House chef.
Oh, wow.
Opened his own catering business right over here in the area.
Wow.
And in the daytime it was his, you know, banquet hall, operated restaurant, fixed food, and so forth. At night, it was he transitioned into a nightclub. You know?
Good deal.
Yeah, yeah, you know.
Wow.
Yeah, and that was actually the first place that Marvin Gaye performed professionally was in Barnett's Crystal Room, is what they called it. Yeah. Yeah.
What type of food did they sell there?
So, you know, what people call soul food.
Okay.
You know. Yeah, you know, I mean, you know, but they fixed the whole fare. I mean, you could get everything, you know. You could get everything from candied yams to, you know, all of the other products, you know, whether it was ham or, you know, the chops, you know. Yeah, all those things. But no, they, you know, the whole spread. Yeah, the black-eyed peas, the, you know, the okra, you know, the succotash, you know.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, you know, I mean, you name it, you know, they fixed it. They were mostly Southern people, you know, that came into the area, so, yeah.
Good deal.
Yeah, but, Barnett's, and then there were carryouts, you know, in the area that, you know, they had the delis, which was great. Almost every one of those markets, there were, first the Jewish-owned markets, had a deli in them where you could go and get fresh cut meats, but you could also get fresh deli sandwiches. You know, so, you know, wasn't no McDonald's around, so, you know, like, which was cool. You know, you get a cold cut sandwich sometimes, you know, had absolutely no meat on it. You know, just tomatoes, cheese, lettuce, you know, on you know, fresh bread, and yeah.
That sounds
My mom
so
even
good.
baked it. She baked all her own bread. She baked it all.
Oh, wow.
Everything from rolls to loaf bread, all of that. We always had fresh bread. You know. So that's how you make your sandwich. You make a sandwich. I used to get in trouble because I used to cut thick slices. Why you wasting bread? Sandwich be that thick. The bread.
The bread was more than half of it.
Yeah, but But you had carry out shops that were operated, independent business carry out shops, folks,
Wow.
were,
It's interesting.
and these were all right here in this
Hmm.
this community. Another popular food establishment was the Shrimp Boat.
Mm-hmm.
I was there.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now, was that
Primarily
just shrimp?
Well, no,
Or
seafood,
seafood?
primarily seafood.
Okay.
But, you could go get seafood platters, shrimp,
Mhm.
oysters,
Mhm.
clams, all those kind of things. But primarily seafood. That was why they called it the Shrimp Boat.
Mm-hmm.
And then,
Wow.
there was some other carryouts. I remember one up Benning Road that was very popular called Wings and Things.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mhm.
then they came up with a second version of it called Mo Wings.
Actually, do you know that it just recently suffered? It's not open. I want to say 2 weeks ago, maybe a little more than that. It
Yeah.
little fire.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Yeah,
wow,
yeah,
you
right,
know, it's
right.
definitely changing.
Yeah, and then there were, if you really wanted to go to some restaurants, you could go into U Street area.
Okay.
U Street for the black community that was the place. I
Mhm.
mean, everything from the entertainment
Mhm.
to the, food, even, everything was there.
Wow.
Yeah, that was like, you stepped out of the neighborhood, you had no, like, where you going? U Street,
Mhm.
like, they had, bars, restaurants, clubs that played all kinds, jazz club, all kinds,
Wow.
there were at least 3 or 4 movie theaters up there.
Hmm.
Yeah, you had the Republic, you had the Booker T, you just,
Wow.
yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
You had, the Alamo was down on 7th Street. You didn't go to Alamo too much, but, yeah. There were 3 major theaters were right there on U Street. Mm-hmm.
I can't imagine. I hear a lot of stories, and people will actually come by, the job,
Mhm.
and say, "Wow, I remember this was an old drugstore,
Mhm.
and the doctor's office was right there, and
Yeah.
so I can only imagine."
Oh,
It's-
yeah. The doctor, our doctor lived 2 streets over from us. He did house calls.
Oh wow.
Yeah, when you got ready to get a checkup, it was time for a checkup. He came by,
Mm-hmm. With his little bag
and sit down and, I'll be wondering when I'm gonna get, I'll be afraid because I always think I was gonna get a needle. And they sit around, they talk, socialize, might even get something to eat. Then you get checked out. Yeah,
After you ate.
yeah, kind of, but then,
Mhm.
yeah, that's all.
Good deal.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we're actually gonna jump to not the garden that you have at home or what you grow at home, but the community gardens that you're actually involved in. And you said that you're involved in, I guess, 3 of them for the most part, Mayfair. And you said Glencrest and Deanwood.
Mhm.
Do you do anything specifically there, or you just kind of just experience whatever you want to experience at all 3?
Well, they are structured a little differently, each one, because of the community where they're located.
Mm-hmm.
In Mayfair, which is in the Mayfair Garden is in a actual community that is a residential complex.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's primarily for the residents of Mayfair.
Okay.
But they formed a garden club
Mm-hmm.
who operate the garden. They have the garden, they structure the garden club. You have to be a member of the garden club to work in the garden. That was the way they put controls on it.
Mm-hmm.
It, has raised beds. We did construct raised beds, have herb beds on the front. It does have some fruit trees. They have apple and pear. The pear didn't do too well this year. And it has some fig. It has a large fig tree. And it's really grown out really nice.
Wow.
And the interesting thing about this garden is now we have constructed, we've had installed these two large cisterns, water capturing devices from one of the buildings that's right across from the garden. These are very large cisterns. Each one of them hold 900 gallons.
Wow.
And the water is piped over into the garden, so it has its own water source without having to turn on a tap. So it's pretty self-sustainable. And
Nice.
so that's the Mayfair Garden, and we've added beds over the last couple of years. Because as it gets more used, it has a little bit more space. It has space for, we might have to reconfigure some things going forward, or maybe even use another space within the complex
Okay.
that they could turn, because they do have a lot of green space within that complex that could be
Wow.
used for that.
Nice.
Now the Glencrest is similar, but it's in a more public location, so some of the wider community can use it. One of the things we did with Glencrest, we planted a small orchard there
Nice.
last year. So those trees are still young, but they're growing.
Nice.
Along with raised beds, and this is a pretty sizable space. It's actually 3 acres, and so they are only about a year old, and they
Okay.
have some room for expansion, but
Beautiful.
it's moving along.
Good.
And the Deanwood Learning Garden is it's on a parcel that was Department of Housing Community Development licensed over the groundwork, and the community wanted to turn it into some kind of asset from what it was, which was an overgrown vacant lot that was being used for various nefarious kinds of activities, everything from dumping to just not being a very attractive place. So we work with the community to transform it into what we call the Learning Garden. And it has pervious walkways through it, raised beds. We have fruit trees planted in there now, along with some
Nice.
shade and ornamental trees. And we have a constructed wetland right in the center where we discovered water. It's probably fed by some underground spring, being that we are as close to the Anacostia River and Watts Branch in this area. There are a lot of underground springs.
Nice.
So it's and so we as we moved stones and things out of the way, more water appeared. So we basically put wetland plants in there. We have wild rice. We have
Beautiful.
we planted a river birch right in the center of it. It's doing excellent, and it attracts a lot of migratory birds and insects and things.
Wow.
So and it's a great place to for people to understand, how a wetland.
And nobody had any idea it was there?
Well, the people in the neighborhood knew that, they have all kind of theories. One lady was telling us that she heard that there was a well on that property. Well, that might have been the case.
Okay.
And if it was a well is basically fed by, some groundwater, so,
Wow.
yeah.
So how's the rice doing?
Oh, the wild rice is doing well. It's not edible, it's for the.
But
Yeah,
but still.
Oh
I can
no!
imagine
Everything
rice.
is. I mean, it's really.
NBC.
Yeah, it's really grown out. It's everything that's in there is doing excellent.
That is
and
interesting.
yeah, we even. You see some aquatic, not fish, but we've seen some aquatic, like some salamanders and some other things that are hanging in
Good.
and around. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I was thinking about taking, see if I could bring something out of the Anacostia water. Bring over there, maybe like a frog or turtle or something. See how
That
they
would
would
be
do.
nice.
Yeah. It's a habitat.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they help too, honestly.
Yeah,
They
yeah,
really
yeah,
do.
yeah. That's plenty for them to eat. You know, a lot of
Mhm.
bugs, and but it would be it's excellent for the youth to be able to use it. And that's why we call it the learning garden.
Mhm.
So the goal of the learning garden is to have something there that illustrates all of the senses.
Mhm.
Something nice and beautiful and bright for the sight, but also the edibles,
Mhm.
for taste,
Yeah.
and the beauty of the smells of what
Yeah.
can you have there, and even the items that dry, and when the wind blows, you hear,
Mhm.
because it's an interesting place to be in at different
Mhm.
times of the year and the seasons, as well as when it's quiet, you listen. So yeah, it's really designed to really highlight all of the senses,
Yes.
and at the same time, be a nice
Mhm.
place right in the middle of the neighborhood where
Nice.
community can
That is
enjoy.
awesome.
Yeah.
That is awesome. Yep, right here in the
Right
city.
here in Ward 7, right here in the city.
Okay, and this is probably one of my last questions, but out of all this food and gardening and growing and changes and demographics in DC, um, are there any special preparations other than your eggs and rosemary that you use with what you grow, or fresh produce that you may pick up from someone that's growing? Anything special? You and your wife.
Yeah, yeah. Well, one of the things I've learned that I've really worked to implement, and I've done it more in the gardens, is companion gardening.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a great experiment, and I'm still learning about that. But um, uh, uh, rotating those crops and which ones actually complement one another and I see how it really works well. And the combination of actually using the natural pesticides that keeps from having to rely on non-organic sources. We, of course, always plant marigolds in all of the garden areas. We have plenty of that around, which works well. Also, there are assortment of mints that actually keep certain reptiles out. A lot of people are a little leery of snakes, even though we don't have any real dangerous ones in the area. But that's what that mint does. Something like a pineapple mint. You can use it as a ground cover in certain areas, and if you can control it, it'll serve that purpose. And then one of the things that we haven't done, but we plan to do, is definitely at the Mayfair Garden. We'll probably do it at Glencrest as well, because they have the space, and that is construct some hoop houses to be able to extend the growing season. In those gardens.
They're becoming popular.
Yeah, they are. They are, and they're easy to do, and can work well. So, and that's one of the additional things. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
very nice. Well, is there anything else that you would like to add? You would want people to know specifically? It doesn't have to be experience oriented, just from your own knowledge, something significant.
Well, I would say utilize the abundant green spaces. We're very fortunate here in Washington to have access to an abundance of green space, and fortunately our municipal government has, and through advocacy on the part of, the
Mhm.
residents and those who are, especially the agricultural food or urban food advocates, are utilizing more and more, whether it's the rooftops,
Mhm.
whether it's the schoolyards, the recreation centers, but even the parkland now is being utilized more for a lot of the growing purposes. So I would just encourage folks to, whether they want to look at it as a way of really sustaining themselves,
Mhm.
but get involved with it to whatever extent they can. Utilize these spaces, utilize the opportunities, expose our young people to it as much as possible, and it'll help in a number of ways. Eating fresh would be great,
Mhm.
but it's also good exercise because you have to bend, you have to reach, so forth,
Mhm.
and it's a stress reducer,
Definitely.
and it builds community because you have some great conversations,
Mhm.
just by being in and around, and
Mhm.
so that's if I can impart anything, I would say definitely just get outdoors, get to those areas, um, and take advantage of it.
Wow, beautiful. Thank you so very much for your story, for your history, for all the information that you're holding inside that, you're able, this is an avenue to at least let everybody know, those that are willing, just to, like I said, know what's here. Whether people bring it from afar or whether they just generally have it here, and it definitely is a wealth of information. I do appreciate all that you have shared, honestly.
Well, you're welcome, and thank you for the opportunity to share.
Thank you.